About 10 mics all out of phase, and then hopes for the best. Russ gets lucky. Well, there's some science to what I do, isn't there?
Yeah, I just plug a load of mics up, and some of them will sound good.
Yeah, I think it's got to be good at source, really. I mean, as a guitar player myself, if you sit in the control room, you're playing. You can always tell when it feels right. You get the response back through the speakers. So, I was always after the quest for tone when I was playing in bands, and the thing that taught me to keep it simple, actually, I used to do little demos. Just have a little Fostex Portal 1, and you remember those little vinyl boxes, the little single boxes, that were obviously 7 inches high. It's just the right size to get an SM57 under the handle and put in front of my Marshall combo. And this, I was like, when I came to start working, doing engineering, and all these guys had like 414 on the cab, and something 6 foot back, and you ended up with these huge room mics, and it never sounded right. It was always washy and that 80s sort of sound. And my demos always sounded great because it was one mic right in the right place. It just clicked. So I started keeping it simple. Just 1 or 2 mics on the right spot, good amp, got the sound good at source, not relying on EQ for the sound, and I think the less you have to do to it, the more you're in the right spot, really, aren't you?
If you have to take too long searching for the sound, then you haven't got it right coming out of the amp.
And I always say that about mixers as well. If you're doing a mix and you're chasing things around the mix, you're constantly having to ride bits of the mix. If your mix isn't balanced, then there's something wrong somewhere anyway. So you need to step back from it and be your own critic, really, and sort of figure out where it's going wrong. Your mix should, in theory, mix itself, and then you're the guy that's tweaking it. If your sounds are right. But obviously, the stuff we get sent these days, it's not always the case of that.
Well, that's what seems to be happening here.
Yeah. Yeah, your 10 mics worked out right then.
No, this was very simple.
Was it?
Yeah, it was
How many mics on this?
A 57 and a Royer.
Royer?
Yeah.
So I never had any joy with them. Actually, is it John Royer, the main guy? He got in touch with me because I actually said on my website I couldn't get anything good out of a 121 or whatever they are. But I'm surprised actually because I couldn't hear it on that. But I've always just been mainly 57 really. I've been using the Audio Technica a bit recently as well, the dual element one that they do. Is it AT250 dual element? Yeah. And that's added it's got quite a nice slice to it. But yeah, there's the Heil as well, the PL30 that
I've just got one a couple of weeks ago, and the last
that's
recording
kind of nice.
I did,
That's kind of a nice mix between a 57 and a 421 actually. It's got a nice fatness if you want something a bit different.
Yeah, I ended up using just that on its own on the last recording I did. And everybody was, what? Using one mic?
Yeah.
Are you feeling alright?
But so many of the albums I've done have been just solely 157 in a sweet spot on a vintage 30. I find the 75 watt selections are just a little too big. You look at the, shine a mag light on them and you'll see the centre of the cone's a lot bigger than like a greenback or a vintage 30. And I think, when you're just using one mic on it, it's easier to find the sweet spot. So I've always, I've just kept it simple, really. So, it's not rocket science. There's no secret to it. You just got to know what you're listening for, really, haven't you? I try. Well, overheads are, I think that one of the hardest things to get right in a sort of metal drum kits, really. And I always try and sort of spot mic cymbals. I'll go if there's just ridiculous amounts of cymbals, I'll try and mic in pairs. Rather than, I'm never doing this cross pair behind the drummer's head and all this, it doesn't work for metal as far as I'm concerned. You want that, the stereo spread, you want to be able to pull chinas out of the mix, And I'll tend to go in and, say I've got 6 overhead tracks, like I'll mute the ride when he's not playing the ride, I'll mute chinas when he's not playing chinas, so they really, you really get them to pop out the mix when he's hitting them. And I'll just keep sort of the 2 or 3 main crashes open for the overheads, and the little splashes I'll bring in when he's playing them. So,
Yeah, I mean it is impossible when you've got a double kick huge bastard drum kit. It's impossible to get it off a pair. I actually a little while ago I thought, I haven't done an XY for...
And you tried it, and then 15, you realise, well, you have.
It's probably 15 years since I've done it, and I thought, I'll just have a go. Yeah, forget it. Right? Rubbish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have a head mic, really slammed with compression. Sometimes it doesn't get into the mix. Sometimes it's useful just for a bit of spread of everything. Sometimes you get a nice smack from the snare with it.
Yeah, I don't go mad on room mics. I mean, you know, it always happens now that you'll get sort of 6 room mics in a session that's sent to you, and the guy hasn't mic'd the ride up. You know, it's like, if only you'd listened. But yeah, I'll go for a couple. You know, just a pair of room mics, and it helps the cymbals a little bit, smooths them out a bit, and gives the kit a bit of glue, really. You know, if you compress them a bit and throw them in there with it. But you know, with a lot of the editing that's going on, you've got to be so careful that you know, you're not chopping your room mics up, you know, out of time or anything. You know, depends on the drummer as well. You know, the overheads really reflect on how a drummer plays, on how balanced he is as a player. I was saying to you, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And the guys that are here now, that I'd love to record a band again now, live, everyone playing together. But I actually think the quality of playing has gone, you know, it's dropped since everyone's started writing at home, everyone's writing on laptops, you know, some sort of digital workstation. I just don't think the quality of playing is there as it was in the 80s, you know, because back then you actually had to be able to play your songs to learn them. You know, a lot of people didn't have a way of recording the songs, so you get together as a band, rehearse them to be able to learn them and write them. Where people aren't doing that now. They're writing on computers, coming into the studio, and a lot of the time the band hasn't even played it as a band, you know. So it's just the way it's gone, you know.
Yeah, a lot of times a new album or a new song won't be played together as a band until the first gig they do.
Yeah.
After they've made the album.
Yeah. It's just a different way of thinking. I mean, to be honest, if I was doing the band side of things now, I think I'd be doing the same thing, because, you know, getting everyone together, I mean, you've got to deal with a drummer, for starters. I rest my case, you know. You know, I'd much rather, you know, grab Easy Drummer and show the guy what to play rather than trying to beat him. So yeah, it's just I think it's more convenient, isn't it, really, for bands, you know, just to write like that now. And you get a better quality demo. You know, and of course you get the band member who knows how to use Pro Tools when he comes into the studio. Tells you how to do your shortcuts.
Yeah.
You know all about that.
Yeah.
Just having the idea in your head. I mean, you know, I sit on my forum all the time. There's, and I get, you know, what plugins do you use, what samples do you use, what miking techniques do you use, and it's all right knowing that, but it's knowing what you're listening for, knowing the problems you're listening for, and you know, hearing the big picture and how it all goes together. You know, how things sit together. I think it's only really experience that can teach you that. You know, I mean, I listen to albums I've done over the last 15 years, and I can hear how I was learning as I was going on. You know, you go through different phases, don't you? Different little tricks you were doing as you were mixing, and it all adds up. You know, you work with other engineers, you pick bits up off different people, and it's only experience that will teach you all that. You know, you can go to what's the school? Is it SAE or something?
SAE,
Yeah. I get letters from all these places, you know, kids that have spent fortunes going to these places. And it's just, I'm not going to take you on. You know, if I want a guy working with me in the studio, I want someone who's not going to be in awe of the band that's there. You know, I want someone who's going to come in, keep the mouth shut, get the work done, you know, and take the band shopping and feed them when they need it. You know, so it's
yeah.
You don't want someone who's trying to, you know, do your job. You need.
I get, dozens a week. You know,
yeah.
I've just done this course. I want to come and work with you in your studio. You know, I had some guy who was 19, had done a couple of years course. Said, yeah, well, I know how to use Pro Tools. I know how to do everything. Thought he was going to just walk straight into the job and just start doing it. What am I going to do? What are you doing? And he said, yeah, well, you only need to start me on 18 grand a year. His first assisting job. I said, yeah, good luck, mate. 18 grand a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people who've been assisting for years in London studios, and A lot of them don't get paid anything.
No.
Really interested in coming up here this week. It's the first time we've done anything, in sort of with each other, and it's quite interesting to see how similar ways we approach things.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a. I don't know. I mean, I'm actually, like I was saying to you earlier, I'm going a little bit out the box now, which I've been mixing. I came up mixing on the SSLs, and then mixing at my place, and the way budgets have gone, everything started going within the box, and I've been doing it like that for the past 6 or 7 years really. But I'm just trying to enjoy it again really, just trying to get a bit more creative with it rather than mixing by numbers, I call it. I mean, it's you don't realise you're doing it, but you are. You almost, you can spend a day just putting plugins on and just EQ curves as well. Where normally you just grab it, do it, so you're listening to it. I bet if that came up on the screen and you saw it, you'd be like, oh, that's wrong. Can't have that. It doesn't look like my normal curve on the kick. So it's.
Have you seen that Listen plugin?
No.
You just click on the plugin and it blanks out the whole screen and it just says listen. So you stop looking at it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You've got to be able to get on with the characters within a band. I mean, I think for me, being doing 3 albums as a guitar player before going to production helped with that, because I was always on the other side of the glass. I was always the guy. I learned as being a guitar player doing albums, so I think I always relate to band members well, because I'm of the same ilk really. I think so. I think you get on a good personal level. You do the job well. You get the results that they're happy with, and hopefully. And the other thing as well, I mean, I sort of tend to do 2 or 3 albums with bands, and then I think it's right. I sort of encourage them to go elsewhere then, because I think it gets boring. If you can only put a certain amount into a band, there's only a certain amount of guidance you can get. There's only a certain amount of lyrics you can help them with. And then I think it's right to go off and try and find something else. Maybe come back a couple of albums down the line, but you got to be careful not to keep repeating yourself as well. Russ?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are people I've worked with. Obviously, the Napalm Death Lads. I've worked with them for a long time.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, but. That's been kind of a growth thing. We've kind of evolved. We're both a long way from where we were when we started working together. But I know what you're saying about you can wear it out.
It gets boring for us. If we're working with the same guys all the time, it's like you get the call. Year and a half down the line. Do you want to do another album? It's like. Can I call you back? It's. I think it's just right sometimes. You can only put a certain amount into it. I think so.
But like you were saying, I mean, empathy with band members is highly important on my list of things. You got to know. Some people need to be gently coaxed into a performance. Some people need to be kicked up the arse. Some people, you need to be a clown. Some people you need to be a bastard to. And if you get it right, everybody really appreciates, the fact that you've recognised their character for who they are and helped them perform in the way they needed to do the album. And they do come back. The phone does ring again and again. There's not many people I only work with once. And almost everybody comes back for another go.